Welcome, everyone. Evening, and welcome to another Peaceful Solution Character Education Teacher Certification class. You can be seated. Welcome to our teachers in training locally, our teachers in training online, watching us on Facebook, peacefulsolution.org website. Welcome to another class here as we continue in Unit 5 of the Intermediate Series, the Responsibility Unit. As the old saying goes, you know, responsibility is not just another 14-letter word. Yeah, I don't remember hearing that growing up either. But this is a very important characteristic that we're covering, as were all the rest of them that we covered in the previous lessons. But like self-control, this is something that needs to be practiced every day, you know, incorporated into pretty much all aspects of our life, especially as we work in demonstrating the positive character traits that we've been learning for the last, you know, few years in these classes. Because without responsibility, we won't get much done, right? We won't be very trustworthy. You know, we won't do our jobs. People won't be able to rely on us. You know, we might be put in a job to do and halfway do it and, you know, cause issues with productivity or loss of resources or whatnot. But, you know, as we teach and train our students, now you remember, because we're dealing with, you know, the young men and the young women ages 11 through 13 years old in this intermediate lesson here. Of course, it applies to all ages, but it's targeted towards them. We're really getting their minds set towards what they're going to need, a tremendous asset, the tremendous skill set that is right now still highly valued, even in the workplace. The character trait of responsibility. I actually I did something I haven't done in years. I went and looked up some of the job postings online, just to kind of see, are they still kind of the same? Are they still looking for the same qualities in an employee? And for the most part, they are. A lot of it's technical based and, you know, work from home and, you know, have the freedom and to this and to do that. But for the most part, many of the job postings are still looking for these same things. In fact, let me just take a look here. Here we go. I looked up one here, and this is local. And you see these characteristics that they want in the employee, but also letting the employee know what there is going to be required of them as well. This one here is for a customer service agent, and I won't give the name of the place, but it says here, as a customer service agent, you'll be says a superstar who puts a smile on your customer's face. Your mission: answer questions, solve problems, and make customers' day a little brighter, all while working from home. And then it gives here key responsibilities. Be the friendly voice on the phone. Now, you remember what we covered in you know, self-control and in our communication, respect in our communication and interaction, you know, and so forth. Employers look for these types of things, especially from what I've heard over the years is customer service is one of the most mentally challenging jobs to have to deal with, especially if you have to deal directly with the public or on the phone or, you know, at the returns desk or whatever the case might be. It can be quite a challenge to maintain this responsibility that this employer gives here. Be the friendly voice on the phone, you know, reply to emails and so forth. And then another one here says, this one here is working for a AC company, and it says requires they give you, you know, so many years experience, looking for someone, and this is what I was looking at here, looking for someone that can work on their own or within a team remotely, right? And to be able to work on your own, you do have to have this character trait of being responsible because it could be very easy to just slack off, to not really, I don't really feel like it. I'm going to pull up to the job. I'm going to eat lunch, then I'm going to take a quick nap, and then I'll get up and do my job, right? But nobody else is here. What is it hurting? Well, it can be hurting the company because a lot of these companies base their jobs on how long it would take to get the job done. Even in a lot of the mechanic fields, you see that when the mechanics price out a job to get your car fixed, they have a book, probably a computer now that they go by, that says to do this job, to replace this water pump in this car, it requires these parts and also this many man hours at this labor rate, right? And so, companies know the approximate time that it takes to get something done. And if you go there and you don't do your job in a timely manner because you're not responsible, then it costs the company money. Why? Because they have to send you back out another day or have to send someone else out, So these are the things that young people don't really think about because they're not really deeply involved in those aspects of life. A lot of them don't have jobs, not at 11 or 12 years old, unless they have something that their parents have given them around the house, or something that they might do for a family friend or a family member that might own a business. But it's great to get these characteristics, these traits instilled in them at a very young age, because it'll be a lot easier in life for them when they have these and they value them. So we are still in, go back here. I'm gonna go back here to LP one here, LP1E, and we are still in procedure 2. Now just refresh it again, read it. It says, tell students that in today's lesson, they will focus on what it means to be responsible, how to develop a responsible character, and the rewards of achieving a responsible character. Have students turn to page 3 in their handbooks and read the introduction, which is where we are right now. And of course, last class, we talked about, behavior, and how we treat others. How we behave and how we treat others is based on our character. We covered a little bit of the question at the very beginning of the paragraph that we can see there as to why are people so different, right? Why are some people honest? Why are some people dishonest? And, it came back down to the character that a person has, which is the sum of a person's, the character is the sum of all the different traits that they developed over the years, right? That enables them to choose between right and wrong. Now, we know, because we've been taught for many, many years now, and eventually your students know what is required to enable you to make a decision between right and wrong. What do you have to have? Yeah, you got to be educated. You have to be taught the difference between what is right and what is wrong. Now, contrary to popular belief, like we're going to cover here about responsibility, not everybody knows what's right and wrong. And I've heard the statement, oh, that's common sense. You should know that's right. You should know that that's wrong. Well, we take that for granted, possibly because we've been taught it, or possibly because we've been around a lot of people that have been taught it. So we think that that's the consensus. Well, there's people who think that, people don't have to pay their electric bills. Everybody has maids in their house. Everyone goes to school with a chauffeur, a chauffeur who drives them. There's people who have that mindset. They think everybody lives that type of lifestyle because they were born and they were raised up in an environment where they, as the old saying says, had a silver spoon or a gold spoon, in their mouth. But that's not the case. So the fact is, people's realities are different based on what they've been taught, what's in their environment, what their influences are, and so forth. Well, it goes the same with somebody who doesn't know the difference between right and wrong. Now, they might have a general idea, right? They know things like you shouldn't steal because there's a sign on the door that says do not steal, or theft, theft will be, or thieves will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law, or no trespassing sign on the fence or the gate or something like that. But do they understand why? Why should you not steal? Why should you not trespass? And it's easy to say that they should know, but the problem is these things are not consistently being taught in today's society. Very little at home, hardly any at school, and it's not really mentioned at work except for when a person does wrong. Now they have to be corrected, right? So it's best to, as the saying goes, an ounce of prevention is worth more than a pound of cure. And the education in this kind of can stave off a lot of conflicts or problems that can occur in a person's future. So the differences in how we behave and how we treat others are based on our character. And it says a person's character is made up, I'm on page 3 at the top paragraph there, of both positive and negative traits. And it gives some examples of respect and disrespect, self-control and a lack of self-control. And then the last sentence there you see on the top paragraph, it says you can develop character, positive character, when you focus on developing positive character traits while eliminating negative ones. Now, if you remember where we left off in the last class and how, we were talking about the importance of focusing our mind on the development of these positive character traits, having kind of like a laser focus. And this is what we want to instill in our students' minds. Like I said before at the beginning of last class, there's plenty of negativity in society. We don't have to worry about the negativity. It'll take care of itself. We need to acknowledge that it's there and what it's causing, and at times might even cover, where it comes from, right, and what it can lead to. But the focus is on the opposite character traits, the opposite skills that'll help you become a productive member of society, that will break the cycle of, well, my granddad was a thief and my dad was a thief, so I guess I'm just going to be a thief. No, you don't have to be a thief. Those traits can actually be changed. Your character traits can be changed because they are not fixed traits. Remember, we learned that at the very beginning first chapter in the character unit. So it says developing these character traits while eliminating the negative ones. Now we'll look there into the second paragraph. Second paragraph on page 3. It says, now in this unit, you will learn how to develop the positive character trait of responsibility. And this is the main focus. First off, understanding what it means to be responsible. Okay. And if you remember what I mentioned from last class about what we covered here in the previous lesson, let's see here. We talked a little bit about the difference between developing and building and developing. And it's kind of I don't want to say an abstract thing. I mean, it's not something that's super critical, but it's interesting when you look up these, the definitions of these things, because all, the words that are in the peaceful solution, I think Williams mentioned this before, everything that's here is very important. It's very well placed and it's laid out for a purpose. And sometimes as teachers, I know myself, you'll find me going back and looking up things, even super basic words that I took for granted that I fully understood what that meant. But then when I look it up, I find out, wow, there's a lot more to this than what meets the eye. But this word build, build versus develop. Now, I'll put it on the overhead here. I didn't prepare any slides. So it says build versus develop. It says build refers to the physical assembly of components or structures, often implying construction from the ground up. Now that's in regards to, physical things, houses or computers or things like that. But it also applies to people as well. It says develop, however, suggests a process of growth, improvement. It says evolution there. But not necessarily physical. And this next definition here, which I thought was pretty neat, regarding development. It says development is a process of growth and directed change. A process of growth and directed change. It is a broader term that includes the construction phases. Building, on the other hand, refers to the act or process of constructing a structure. So when I looked at that there, it kind of reminded me of both internal and external actions, right? The heart and the mind, but the physical work that is necessary to bring something forth. In other words, for us, it's a well-rounded character. Remember, the actions that we see coming forth from our students and coming forth from us, which means we have to do certain things, that starts within our minds, within our hearts, right? The development of that character starts within our hearts and our minds, and then we see it. People can see that we're actually building this character trait of responsibility, or this respectful reputation, or this person is a person of integrity or practices self-control by what we do, okay? But that reminded me of, let me see here. That reminded me of the acceptance unit, and I believe it was chapter 5. That's not the acceptance unit. Sorry about that. But when you think about that definition there in regards to develop or development, a process of growth and directed change. Directed change, that indicates, a purpose, right? You're directing a particular change. It's not just something that's passively taking place, but a person is actively working to bring about a change, in this case, with their character. That phrase right there reminded me of what we covered in chapter 5 on page 87 in the acceptance unit under There Is Purpose to It All. It says, to have purpose in life means to have a positive direction in which to grow and mature. All right. So when we're developing our character, we have a target that we're striving to reach. We have something in our heart, something in our mind, that we're striving for. And even as teachers, that we're pushing for our students, and hopefully getting them to the point where they're wanting to, have that drive for themselves. But this ties back into purpose. It says, knowing your purpose, this is on page 87 of the acceptance unit, chapter 5, helps you to know what you want to do with your life. How can you tell if there is a purpose in someone's life? Well, look to see if they're motivated and determined to accomplish things. People with purpose strive to learn all they can about a particular subject so they can know how to best proceed. All right, so just keep that in mind there as we move forward. All right, so let's look at the second paragraph there. It says, now in this unit, you will learn how to develop the positive character trait of responsibility. The positive character trait of responsibility. Pop quiz. Does anyone remember where we first covered that responsibility? If you're online, you can type it in. Where we first covered that responsibility, that word responsibility, talking about it, going into a little bit of detail about it. I'll give you a clue. Rhymes with character. Our goal is to help you succeed, right? Well, it's on character in the character unit, chapter 1, page 17. All right. And it's covering the same thing here, but we actually started planting these little seeds into our students' mind at the very beginning of this series here, to get their minds thinking and understanding, so that by the time they get all the way to unit number 5 and they are on the lesson of responsibility, they can remember the lessons that they've learned from character and see how it brought them up to the point where they are now. On page 7 in the character unit, chapter 1, it says, Being responsible is another trait you should want. You should want to make a part of your character. Being responsible means to be accountable and answerable for your actions. You will be known as a reliable person, someone others can count on. Someone who is responsible or irresponsible is unreliable. In the second paragraph there it says, responsible people are given more important duties because people know they can be counted on to do a job. They also receive more privileges. And then at the very bottom there, in that last paragraph, it says, these are just a few of the many valuable moral principles you have at your disposal. Strive to make them all a part of your moral character development. Remember this, basing your decisions on facts, not emotions, is important to building a true moral character. When you gather all the facts, you are able to make a better decision than when you only have a portion of the facts. So we laid that foundation all the way in the character unit there for what we're going to be covering this evening, or at least getting into it. So now it says, in this unit, you will learn how to develop the positive character trait of responsibility because, believe it or not, people are not born knowing how to be responsible. Just like we said, people are not born knowing how to, practice self-control. People are not born knowing how to, be respectful and so forth. These are things that have to be taught. In the same way, a lot of the negative things that you see in society, people are not necessarily born with those. They have to be taught that. Things like, racism and hatred and, violence. Granted, some of these things, portions of them can be passed down. If the parent had these immoral characteristics, they can be passed down to the child. But like we covered about, a violin player or a musician, these traits have to be nurtured after the child is born in order for them to become strong. Otherwise, they might just lie dormant. So responsibility, like respect and self-control, must be developed over time. And it, like we say, it takes time to develop positive character traits. They're not something that come overnight. And even as your students, they might come to you and be very frustrated with themselves because they've fallen. They had the opportunity to practice self-control and they failed. They feel they failed, right? They failed, or they snapped back, or they yelled at a person, or they mouthed off to their parents or to another teacher. They didn't de-escalate a situation. They added fuel to a fire, whatever the case might be. But that's shows their desire to improve. If they're coming to you and telling you where they went wrong and they're looking to improve themselves, that means that they're examining themselves. That means that they're seeing what they did wrong compared to what they've been taught is right. Right? And as teachers, it could be easy to say, well, you knew better. Why didn't you just do what I told you to do? They say, kicking them when they're down, right? They already know they did wrong, so encourage them. Well, you realize what you did wrong. You remembered the lessons that were learned. Now, what is your plan to fix it? And see what they say. See what their feedback is. If they bring something forth from the peaceful solution, they're on the right track. If not, that's your opportunity to point those things out and guide them, point them in the right direction. As a teacher, we're always looking for opportunities to teach our children. It's not necessarily our students, not necessarily behind a desk or in front of a chalkboard. Sometimes it's just in everyday life situations. And that's where their resolve is going to be tested the most, right? In dealing with everyday situations. Being responsible means you are someone others can count on to fulfill your duties and obligations. But most of all, like we covered last class, you can count on yourself to make choices that are positive and supportive of your moral character development. Now remember, like William said in the previous class, this is not to be confused with conceit, right? You can count on yourself. Count on yourself. Why do I need to count on myself, right? Because we need to have confidence in our ability to make sound moral choices. You know, we don't need to go into a situation not knowing how to handle ourselves. And of course, the more a person is trained, the more they're educated, the more they learn, and the more experiences that they encounter, the quicker they're going to be able to respond. The faster they're going to be able to draw from that well of knowledge that they've gained from the peaceful solution. You know, at first it's like anything else. You know, we've all done things for the first time. We've ridden a bike for the first time. We've roller skated for the first time. I roller skated many times, and one of my difficulties in roller skating, even with all my years of roller skating, it seemed like all the roller rinks, skated in a counterclockwise direction. And then when they would switch it, I was done. I couldn't go clockwise for whatever reason, but I tried anyway. I knew I was going to fall and make a fool of myself, but I did it. And that's just like anything else. We kind of have to get them out of their comfort zones, because that's where they grow. And yeah, they're going to stumble, they're going to fall, but they need to take responsibility for their character development, and to make sure that even if they're the only one standing up for what's morally correct, that they're there doing it. If you write down for your notes, just keep that in mind. Make sure you can count on yourself. Page 7 of the respect unit. Is that right? Yes, respect unit. And it's under appreciate people. They have value too. And the second paragraph there, it says appreciating yourself. Now that ties right into what we're covering here. Being able to appreciate yourself, because sometimes people don't. They don't appreciate themselves. You think about the high numbers of people. It was just I just heard over the news about 2 days ago, just a little south of Abilene, they found a teenage girl hanging in one of the pavilions in the local park down there. About 10 miles or so south of Abilene. Now, you don't know what, her life was like, or their life was like. I don't know if it was a male or female teenager. No, it was a girl. What their life was like, or how they handled situations, if they were in a dysfunctional family, if she was being bullied at school. There's so many different variables, but I can tell you, at the very least, that she probably did not have as much value and appreciation for herself that more than likely others did, right? And this is what we want to try to instill in our children, because they're going to face those types of forms of disrespect in life. But when they're confident in what they're doing and what they're standing for, they can be like water off of a duck's back, okay? And it says appreciating yourself begins when you realize that you are a unique person with many ideas and qualities that can be beneficial to your life and others. And notice, this is called self-respect. And I don't know, a lot of people aren't told that. They're not told, they're not shown, they're not taught that they have ideas and qualities. They're not made to feel, even when they do have ideas, that their ideas are heard and appreciated. I've heard some things in the workplace, even, where employees have submitted ideas or offered ideas to supervisors, and the supervisor's response was, "I pay you to work, not to think." I pay you to work, not to think. Well, I guess I just mindlessly do my job then, because I don't need to use my brain. And there was one situation where the owner of the company just so occurred to be there when the supervisor did that to one of the employees, and he said, "Don't you ever say that to one of the employees." We encourage ideas from our employees, because they're out there every day dealing with things, and they see things that can help make the company run a little bit smoother, and possibly even be a little more safer and more productive. So hear them out, because they're our eyes and our ears. Well, eventually that guy had the mindset, well, if you like his ideas, well, then he can have my job, and he eventually, got fired. But that's a bad attitude to have in the workplace. But that's a negative. That's a negative character trait there of disrespect. So people who have self-respect that is based on true morals now can develop a positive character that make decisions and that will keep them safe and healthy. And then you see in the straight talk down there, it says recognizing your value as an individual should never be confused with being conceited. And this is what William was talking about in the previous class. Recognizing your value, right, as an individual should not be confused with being conceited. Conceited as in, I'm the hot stuff. I'm the best thing since sliced bread, or whatever the case might be. Appreciating your value simply means to acknowledge your talents and potential, and to make every effort to live up to your potential. You can do so confidently. You see, you should be confident. Like we're going over this responsibility unit here. A person, when they get to this point, they should be able to, with confidence, know that in whatever situation they go into, even though they can't predict the situation or who's going to be there or what the person's going to say, they can control how they respond. And they know that they can use the traits they've learned in the peaceful solution to respond in a peaceful way, even if that means not saying anything or turning and walking in the opposite direction. Like I was saying to someone the other day, and they were telling me about an argument that was taking place, and I said, why are you arguing? Why are you arguing with this person? I said, what does it require for an argument to be sustained? You need two people. So if somebody shuts their mouth, then all you got is one person talking to themselves, right? And that's one of the things I tell you about pet peeves. I don't like arguing. It doesn't seem to get anywhere. It just creates a lot of conflict. But we can use these things we've learned in the peaceful solution to bring about a peaceful solution, right? So you can do so confidently, knowing that your values reflect true positive character. Recognizing your value leads to self-respect. You see, so this is why you want to kind of reinstill that in our students' minds, that it's okay to recognize that you have value as an individual. That leads to self-respect. Why? Because you're not going to be persuaded or talked into engaging in risk-taking behaviors, because you know that you have a greater goal than just for the moment. People who have self-respect are more likely to avoid risk-taking behavior. They strive to develop a positive character and do not succumb to negative pressure and influences. All right. And if you remember what we covered in the character unit under leadership here, oops, that's acceptance. This is on chapter 6, page 132. I just want to tie this in with what we're talking about counting on yourself, because we taught the children this, taught the students this. Let's see here, make sure I'm on the right page. Yeah, page 132. It says, let's see here. Oh, yes. And number 9, it says positive leaders have confidence, right? A positive leader must be confident in the guidance he is leading others with. He must be certain at all times that it is based on moral character that will bring benefit to all. Now, the only way that they can do that is to educate themselves in positive moral character, and in that way they will be confident. Now, confident, being nervous about doing something, does not mean you don't have the confidence. A person can be a little bit nervous because it's the first time they're doing something, but they're confident about what's in their mind. They're confident about how to go about the procedure or whatnot. All right. Let's see here. In respect unit, chapter 6 on page 156, we talk about value here. 156. Uh-oh. Is that right? Oh, under, well, no, let's stop. We don't want to hold there. I'm going to jump ahead of myself there. All right. So let's go back here to page 3 on You Can Count on Me. It says being responsible means that you are someone others can count on to fulfill your duties and obligations, but most of all, you can count on yourself to make choices that are positive and supportive of your moral character development. Um, you learn how to be responsible through everyday tasks, interactions, and experiences. Now, remember in that previous paragraph there, things that are supportive of their moral character development and the lessons that they've covered in the self-control, in the respect, in the character, in the acceptance unit, all those things help and support their moral development. And this is why we go back occasionally, not to, you know, beat a subject to death, but to beat it into our hearts and our minds so that we can remember and tie all these things together. In fact, let me see here. I want to cover that in the self-control unit, chapter 5, page 117. Chapter 5, page 117. Talk about maintaining your self-control. It says to maintain anything on page 117 is to preserve its worth and keep it in its best working condition. A positive character is one of the most important possessions that you can own and value. And just like any other valuable possession, you must guard your character and take precautions to protect it. Now, what does that have to do with anything? Because these are the choices that we have to make on an everyday basis that are positive and supportive of our moral character. Maintaining self-control, maintaining respect, right? Maintaining being a responsible person. In this way, you can continue to make positive decisions that will benefit you and others. Let's see here. And then on page 129, same book, self-control unit. Under let's take a closer look, and this is under the acronym of REACT, which is recognize, examine, act, consider, and think. And just under that recognize there, it says recognize whether an influence is positive or negative. Remember, negative influences can be dangerous and can affect your ability to make positive choices. A positive influence shows value for life and encourages the building of moral character, right? Because these are some of the things, these are some of the factors that a person that they will encounter on a daily basis that can affect their character development. All right, so let's go back here. It says, you will learn in the third paragraph to be responsible through everyday tasks, interactions, and experiences. The tasks that we sometimes think, and that's the operative word there, we think that are boring because they take us away from the fun things we want to do are often the ones that teach us how to be responsible. Now, this is a really popular thing. I think, we've all been children at one point in our lives, even though young people don't believe that we were once their age, and we've all experienced boredom, right? I know I have. I've even vocalized it. What's wrong with you? I'm bored. There's nothing to do. There's zero to do right now. Absolutely nothing. Well, you can clean your room. Parents are always saying that. Well, you can go clean your room. I did that last month, Yeah, well, it looks like you need to go back and clean it again. And this is something that's so common because, and I understand that children, they need their minds stimulated and so forth. I looked at some of the documentaries about what they call these like child prodigies, and it was one of the young men. He was 12 or 13 years old, and I think he was already on his way of graduating from a prestigious university or something like that in physics or math. He was a mathematician or something like that. But you can just see in his eyes, he's like, he's so excited about math. And the guy asked him, he's like, what do you do for free time? And he's like, I play with math problems. I mean, his mind is always thinking about, math. And granted, not everybody's like that, right? But sometimes we have to encourage our students to think outside the box, right? Think about something that you can do Because I understand, just sitting down reading all day. Well, not everybody wants to do that, and so there has to be other stimulating activities. But boredom has led to a lot of bad scenes. And that's where I was wanting to go to here in the respect unit on page 156, and it's just not worth it. And it says, when you consider the high price of risk-taking behavior, it's just not worth it. Yet many people, both young and old, take risks that could change the outcome of their lives, fully aware of the price they could pay. A person who deliberately chooses to engage in risk-taking behavior has little or no value for his health, safety, or well-being. Now, remember what we covered in the previous lessons there, what we just covered, quotes how a person should recognize their value and their worth. Everyone's life has value. It is dependent upon each individual, however, to determine their value and to make positive choices that will keep them safe and healthy. And it says here, let's take a closer look at why people damage reputations and jeopardize their safety and well-being by deliberately engaging in risk-taking behavior. And underneath this, if you remember from the respect unit, the boys were standing in front of the judge, and he's holding up the paper, and the quote was, "I was bored. I was bored." And you ask a lot of young people with that engage in certain things, not only young people. I've seen some of the reports that come across the news. These are grown men and women who not only were they grown, they didn't have to really want for anything because they were born into wealth, right? They didn't have to work, which is probably part of the problem there. They didn't work. They weren't taught responsibility, Probably didn't have chores. The maid did it all. They don't know what a stove is for. Except maybe to sit on when you're talking to somebody. And they engage in these extremely dangerous activities. And when they're asked, it's like, I don't know, I was just bored. I didn't have anything else to do, So you went driving through the neighborhood at 80 miles an hour, right? Well, these are the things that people do. It says a local television station recently reported that 3 teenagers were arrested for vandalizing 2 newly built homes, causing thousands of dollars in damages. When asked why they engaged in this type of behavior, one of the teens said, "We were bored. We were just looking for something to do." Well, I'm sure that judge probably would have told him you should went and clean your room, right? Nobody should be that bored. Read, draw, learn to play an instrument if you're bored, but do not vandalize and destroy someone else's property. Now, this word bored here, bore, to bore someone, bored, boring, or boredom. It means a dull, tiresome, or uncongenial person, feeling weary because one is unoccupied or lacks interest in one's current activity. So I would suggest one finds activity to do. What does that uncongenial mean? That word uncongenial is regarding to people not friendly or pleasant to be with, unsuitable, and therefore unlikely to promote success or well-being, right? Because they're bored. Their minds aren't focused on anything that's going to promote success or well-being. They're not looking at how to develop their positive character. They're not looking at how to improve the environment around them. They're not looking at how to be a benefit to others instead of a burden. They're just, when a person is bored, in most cases, they're just thinking about themselves and just how they feel, okay? And this, like we've said here, we just read that article. They're out of the respect unit on page 156, how boredom and a lack of character can lead to big problems. So the tasks that we sometimes think are boring because they take us away from fun things we want to do are often the ones that teach us how to be responsible. So the next time you are told to turn off the TV, or nowadays, get off your phone, get off your tablet, turn off that PlayStation, or, well, nobody has Sega Genesis anymore. Get off that Atari, Now, that's old school right there. Close the back door or feed the dog. Don't get upset. You're being taught how to become a responsible person. And if you deal with young people long enough, you're going to encounter behaviors in which you have to say these things, constantly, close the doors. Like my mom used to tell me all the time, close the door. I'm not going to heat up the neighborhood, close the door. You're letting the flies in. Well, in my house, you'll be letting the flies out, right? I don't know where they come from. They just seem to all congregate and they look out the window like, oh boy, if I can only be outside, and then they go outside and they want to come back in, but but those things teach responsibility, putting things back when you take them out. A child wants to make some chocolate milk or something like that, or make an ice cream cone. As a parent, or even if you have an activity at school, teach them, well, when you're done, clean up after yourself. Put things back. Put them back in their proper place. Don't just throw them up in the cabinet or stuff them under the bed or whatever. Make sure your clothes are hanging up. That way, when you have to go to school the next day, you don't look like you just rolled out from underneath a potato patch or something. Your shirt's all wrinkly and everything. Make sure your clothes are folded, and your socks are folded and placed in the sock drawer, right? Not underneath your pillow. These are some of the things that you have to constantly instill in young people. And I know when I was a child, I thought, geez, man, I got all these things. I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to do that. But now as an adult, I appreciate it, right? But when you're young, you don't see what your parents see. You don't see, like the saying goes, well, how old are you? Oh, well, I'm 15. Yep, I was 15 once. When were you 40? Oh, you haven't been 40 yet. Okay, so I've already been where you are. So trust me, do this, and it'll help you in the long run. Okay, and that's what our parents and our teachers are there for, is to help us to make better decisions. And really, the hope most parents that I know of teachers is that our children can have better opportunity than we had growing up, and not have to make the same poor choices and mistakes that we made as young men and women growing up. So the next time you're told to do these things, don't get upset. Developing a responsible character takes time and determination. But being someone others can count on as dependable and trustworthy is well worth the effort. Chores. Nobody liked to do chores. I tell you what. When I was a young man, I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was the way that how flawlessly my mom made it look, or if it was just I felt it was an opportunity to play in the water or to play with the bubbles that were in the wash water. But there was a point where I really wanted to wash the dishes. And I remember kind of vaguely, kind of begging my mom, when are you gonna let me wash the dishes? When are you gonna let me wash the dishes? And I was kind of young, but so I had to get a little bit older. And then finally I got my opportunity to wash the dishes, and I washed the dishes with mom because she wanted to make sure that I was doing them properly. And, there was glass, and you have to be careful. There's knives, and you have to be careful when you put your hand in the sink. You don't want to get the water too hot and so forth. You want to make sure you rinse them all off, get all the soap off properly, so no one gets any type of indigestion or anything like that. And then at some point down the road, that became my responsibility, It was my responsibility to wash the dishes. I didn't want it at that time. I just wanted to help occasionally. I wanted to be a part-time dishwasher, not a full-time dishwasher. But after I realized it was my responsibility, even though it was not something I fully enjoyed doing, I made sure that it got done, because part of the responsibility was seeing to it that it got done before you went to bed, And if you didn't, then you would be in that deep, juicy sleep, and then be woken up and say, "Oh, you forgot to wash the dishes." So I just had a nightmare. But these are the things that are instilled in us at a very young age, and can help us to develop other traits that we won't even be thinking about when we're a young person growing up, being given chores. In fact, I looked this up here on psychologytoday.com, and they were talking about the importance of, same thing here in the Peaceful Solution we talk about, because we talked about this all the way in the in the character unit in chapter 2, right? And all in the family, the effects of character within the family, and how responsibilities like chores and so forth are important part of a family structure. And it says it turns out chores have an incredibly important role for the developing child or teen. This is best understood and far more acceptable to children if they are reframed. So they say, instead of saying chores, you can say responsibilities. Of course, teens catch on pretty quick, you know. Oh, yeah, okay, you can call it responsibilities, but it's still chores, you know. But, but it's a just a way of rewording it, as skills that have great payoff. Responsibilities can make children and adolescents feel special. We should think of and present responsibilities to our children in two major arenas. Taking responsibility for the care of others, it says your social responsibilities, and taking responsibility for the care of yourself. Now, is that familiar? Are we not reading the same thing here in the Peaceful Solution, except we're doing it vice versa? We're teaching about being responsible, what it is, and how to be responsible for ourselves, but others as well. It says, let's start with some simple principles. All children have the desire to be competent, effective, and to perfect tasks they previously could not accomplish. The acquisition and demonstration of new skills help foster positive self-esteem when they succeed in perfecting more responsibilities. They not only feel they can do what adults or older siblings do, but earn respect and validation for their competence, really more so honor instead of that respect there, for their validation and competence. In short, tackling responsibilities helps children feel that they are growing up. They are fulfilling an intrinsic desire and drive to become independent, autonomous individuals. In other words, people who are capable of practicing self-control. In addition, they enjoy the pleasure and great satisfaction of taking care of themselves and others. And you'll notice that with young people, that they enjoy helping, right? When they see older people doing certain things, teachers, or possibly, like I said there, an older sibling, they want to participate. They want to do it. In school, you'll have the opportunity. It was always I like to erase the board, or I'd like to write the lesson on there, or I'd like to help sweep the floor at the end of the day, because we wanted to be a part of something bigger. And even doing that, we were helping out the entire class by creating a clean environment to come into class in the next day. So these are important skills to develop. And so let's see, developing a responsible character takes time and determination, but being someone others can count on as dependable and trustworthy is well worth the effort. All right, so let's move over here to page 4. And I think here we'll have to go back, yes, to lesson plan 1, page E, procedure 3. Because it says, explain to students that responsibility plays an important role in how we function in a society. Many things that we come to rely on in society are dependent upon someone being responsible. Have students read the section, being responsible. Is it really that important? On page 4 in their handbooks. Allow time for students to read articles 1 and 2 and complete the section understanding the main point on page 6, and then briefly discuss the value of having responsible people within our society and the consequences if they are irresponsible. Have students complete the exercise critical thinking on page 7 or assign it for homework, which everybody loves. All right, so let's look over to page 4. Got a little time here. Let's see. All right. Being responsible. Is it really that important? Have you ever considered what it would be like if everyone stopped being responsible for their actions, duties, or obligations? Would anything be accomplished? Now, we've been able to see throughout the years things take place just in certain trades where, for instance, people would strike. Certain unions would go on strike. I think we just saw it with the automotive union here not that long ago. I think they finally reached an agreement. But when they go on strike, it slows things down, right? It reduces productivity. It reduces the availability of certain things. There was a time when the union, the sanitation workers, went on strike in New York, and trash just piled up on the streets because people still brought their trash out and set it on the corner, but there was nobody picking it up, right? They weren't being responsible for their duties, and it affected the entire neighborhood. Now, I'll tell you, the one person or the one beings that weren't upset about that were the rats, you know. The New York rats, I tell you, they say those things are like cats. I've even seen the cats run away from the rats there. It says simple things that you probably don't think about much about are accomplished because people are responsible. And this was something that I was thinking about too when we were on the interstate, which most of my travel here in Texas is pretty much on the interstate, but you pass a lot of semi trucks, and semi trucks are responsible for getting items all over the place. Trains are too, but the trains can't drive on public roads, right? They can only drive on the tracks, and they go to a depot, and then you pick it up from that rail yard or whatever there, and they get loaded on the trucks. So do the ships. You see the big cargo ships that bring things from one side of the world to the other on the big cargo ships that literally have thousands of containers on those ships, right? And they are unloaded at the ports, and they're put on trucks, and those trucks take them to various places. We drove by heading out to Dallas. There's a big Amazon warehouse place, and the place is absolutely enormous. I think like over 1 million something square feet. But then you can see all along the side where the trucks park that are part of the distribution. It's just like hundreds of trucks, just hundreds of semi trucks that are there, right? So trucks are play a big responsibility in delivering a lot of the items, many of the items that we have and we rely on every day. For instance, what if the school bus driver decided not to show up? So now we're dealing with the things that a child would deal with on a regular basis. What if that school bus driver decided not to show up for work one day and didn't call or notify the bus company of his absence? He's just going to take a day off. The school would be expecting the bus to keep its schedule. The students who depend on the bus would be waiting and wondering what caused the delay. Frustrated, they would either return home or walk to school. Just think of all the people it would inconvenience just because one person decided not to be responsible. Now, that one person might carry, 40 or so people on a bus, but what if that child couldn't walk to school because they were too far? Now the parent had to come back home, either take off from work or had to leave from work to go to take the child to school, which means they're going to be late to work or whatever thing else they have that they have to deal with. Well, you see how it ripples out. Now you multiply that by 45 or 50 students, right? You could easily have several hundred people quickly affected because one person wasn't responsible in doing their job. What? I just decided to take the day off. What's the big deal? Right? Yeah. Well, you've had a ripple effect on about 120 or 150 something people. Okay. And even the statement was made. A person was irresponsible because they were late. Well, they were caught in traffic, or there was an accident on the interstate. Well, what would show responsibility if a person was in that situation? Calling in and letting the employer or the teacher or someone know, I'm on my way, but there's something beyond my control right now and I can't get there on time, right? A lot of times when people don't show up on time, it's because they're late, because they haven't planned ahead. They weren't responsible. So there's many things that we can institute that would demonstrate this character trait of responsibility. And we'll get much, much deeper into it. Like I said, we're just starting in this chapter here on page 4, which is where the next teacher will pick up. David should be our next teacher, and he'll be here this upcoming Sunday, the 19th, 11/19, and we'll continue the class at 5:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Do thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you for our next class on responsibility. Have a wonderful evening.